Hi Year 8, this is a video going through your lesson in your workbook. We're on lesson 6 in our workbooks. I'm going to go ahead and show you on my Teams where you can find all of this work first. So if you click on History, Year 8, click on Assignments, you'll see it's actually there in the chat at the bottom because I've just posted it. But if you click on Assignments, you will... Oh, there we go. You'll see it there, 8F, History, 7th to the 12th, period 5, okay? So if you click on that one, yours won't look like this. It will look like this. And the first thing I'm going to need you to do is read all the instructions so you know exactly what you're going to do. Now, you'll see here that you're going to do your health check today. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you're going to do your health check on a piece of paper, either in your prep book or just a general piece of paper. The rest of the work you're going to do in your workbook, we're on lesson 6, as I said, I'll show you in a moment. You also will notice that there's a link there to the quiz. You must do the quiz after you finish the lesson. So follow that link. But I'm going to stop sharing now so that I can show you what you need to do in this lesson. Now, the first thing which you need to do, as always, is the quiz it, okay? So it looks like this. Hopefully you can see that we're on lesson 6. Did the sun ever rise on the British Empire? How similar was colonialism in the empire? And you're going to go ahead and read the keywords and definitions first. Pause the video here, read the keywords and definitions now. Excellent. Once you've done that, you're going to move on to the quiz it and answer questions 1, 2, and 3. In question 1, you don't just need to circle which one you think was the common factor. You also need to give a piece of evidence, a fact, to prove why you think that was the most common one in all of the British colonies we've studied. So that's India, Ireland, Australia, the Caribbean, and Africa. Pause the video, complete the quiz it now. All right, once you've done that then, let's talk through this together. Now, the one who thinks the most common factor is really, I suppose, up to you. I mean, I think they're all quite common. If we think about control from Britain, well, we saw that maybe, I'll rephrase that. I think some of them are very common and some of them maybe not. If we think about control from Britain, we maybe saw that in Australia with it being a penal, a prison colony, and them using troops to stop the rebellions of Aborigine people, perhaps, very violently. We've maybe seen it to a degree in Ireland, although we spoke about how actually they had quite a laissez-faire approach. So maybe some places, but not much. Military power, we definitely saw that in the Caribbean. We definitely maybe seen that in Australia. India later on, yes, maybe not so much elsewhere. Migration, we've definitely seen that both into and out of the empire, sometimes enforced like enslavement. Civilized mission, not so sure. Rivalry with European nations, some places not. But making profit, maybe definitely. So I think that's the one I would circle. And then I might give an example such as saying how much money was taken from India by the British during the time of empire. So I might say, for example, that 18 million was taken each year out of India from 1765 to 1815 by the East India Company as my evidence, for example. The East India Company made over 900 million pounds in India. That is true if we think about it in terms of our money today. And then how similar do you think the way the empire was ruled was? Well, again, you need to decide that yourself. Once you've finished that, you're going to go ahead and read the yellow box underneath. Pause this video, read the yellow box now. Now you'll see there that we are going to do our health check in this lesson as promised. And our question is really, how similar was colonialism in the empire? Now we've said there, we want you to focus your answer on the civilizing mission or violence, but actually I think that's quite narrow, year 8. And I'm actually going to show you how you can broaden that out and talk about any of the 6 things that we've highlighted here. Control from Britain, that means from the government. Military power, an army to control the indigenous population. Migration, people to do the jobs. A civilizing mission, making things better. Rivalry with European nations, Britain being number 1, and making profit. We're going to talk about how actually you might talk about any one or maybe even all of those things in your health check. So we're going to broaden it out a bit more than civilizing mission and violence. I think basically you're capable of doing better than that. Year 8. Now, the first thing you're going to do is this thing we call a Venn diagram. Now, it says again, evidence of violence of civilizing mission, and if there's any crossover. Again, we're going to broaden that out, and I'm going to show you how. So I'm going to stop sharing that screen with you, and I'm going to share a slightly different screen. So this is the sort of thing that I would like you to do. You'll see here that what I've done, rather than saying violence, civilizing mission, and where it's both, I've actually just gone with differences in either box on the outside to give me more space to write, and similarities in the middle. And you'll notice that I've looked for differences between how countries were run. So here, islands in the Caribbean, and then I'm comparing a particular factor, one of those things we spoke about at the start. So with the islands in the Caribbean, I've compared migration. And I've said, well, in Ireland, during the potato famine, there was lots of migration out of Ireland to America, whereas in the Caribbean, there's lots of forced migration of enslaved people from Western Africa to the Caribbean, the British Caribbean colonies like Jamaica and Antigua and Trinidad and Tobago. But also there's lots of migration of British people, rich landowners who go out there to purchase and run sugar plantations, and also people to work for them, overseers, British people, and things like that. I've done the same with Africa and India, that time talking about the civilizing mission, although maybe you could argue there isn't really one in either. And then finally, I've spoken about similarities. And here I use the example of Australia and the Caribbean, and violence and military power in both of those colonies. So these are here for an example. You certainly could use these to help you, but in short, what I need you to do with your Venn diagram, year 8, you're not going to focus on violence in the civilizing mission. You're going to write differences in the 2 outside ones, similarities in the middle. And I need you to think about colonies that are run in different ways, i.e., did they have a civilizing mission, or was it for was there migration happening? And then similarities. For example, the most obvious similarity is that clearly every colony is really about making profit. But you need to also, as you'll see in my examples, give specific examples. We've spoken before about having powerful facts. The more detailed your facts are, the more powerful your answers are going to be. And you'll see here that I've used dates, I've used exact statistics in my answers. You need to do the same things. It should take you about 10 minutes. You're going to use your workbook to help you and find lots of answers in there. But you need to pause the video here and complete the Venn diagram now. Okay, once you've done that, the next job actually is to go ahead and read the model paragraph, which you can now see on my screen. It's on the next page in your workbook. Pause this video now and read the model paragraph. Hi, Year 8. So I know it looks a bit strange because my background has suddenly changed. However, unfortunately, the end of the video went a bit funny, so I've had to re-record it at home. I'm just going to take you through the last activity. that actually is to answer your health check. And you'll see at the top in the orange box that your question is, how similar was colonialism in the British Empire? How similar was colonialism in the British Empire? Now remember that colonialism means how Britain controlled its colonies. Colonialism means how Britain controlled and ran its colonies. What this question is actually asking you is, how similar was each British colony? And is there anywhere that we can see all of the 6 things which we were looking for? Now, I'm going to introduce you to a new way of writing. We're still going to write in claim paragraphs, claim, evidence, explain, therefore, but a reminder that you need to include as much evidence as you can in those paragraphs. But we're going to think about a different way of answering them, because we might here want to give a 2-sided answer in our 2 paragraphs that you're going to write for your health check. For example, I could say, on one hand, I believe the British Empire was similar, because if I look at Australia and the Caribbean and Africa and India, in all of those colonies, at first, they use the military to make sure that they have control. So they fight battles. For example, the Battle of Plassey in India is fought for control of Bombay. Or in Africa, with the Zulu Wars, they fight battles in Southern Africa to control the Zulu indigenous population. In Australia, they use British settlers carrying weapons, the Aboriginal native police, and they use soldiers in Tasmania to stop rebellions from Aborigines and take the land from the Aboriginal people, the indigenous people of Australia. And in the Caribbean, as we saw, to stop rebellions like the Baptist Rebellion, or Baptist War, or Taki's War, they use troops, they use British soldiers to put down those rebellions. So you might say there's a similarity there, because they're always using military power in order to keep control. And you'd write your paragraph explaining that. Then you want to say, well, on the other hand, maybe actually there isn't that many similarities between the way that the empire is run. For example, you might want to talk about migration, like we discussed earlier, that in Ireland there is migration, but it's migration out of Ireland to America, not migration within the empire for people to do jobs, like we see in Australia with prisoners being forcibly moved from Britain to basically work in Australia. Or like we saw in India with British men moving out with the East India Company to go and work in India. Africa as well, we saw similar things. Think of Cecil Rhodes, for example. So again, you're thinking about how it is similar or different. You could use my 2 examples I've just given. You might talk about profit. I think that's a very big similarity between all of the colonies. Or equally, you might want to talk about the civilizing mission and how maybe there wasn't one in any, and that's a similarity. So again, in short, to answer that question, you need to write 2 claim paragraphs using the sentence starters on the board, and I am going to insist that you do stick to those sentence starters on the screen, because we're learning a new way of writing. On one hand, on the other hand. The other thing that you must do is use at least 2 words from the tables that I've given you. You need to use 1 word from the first table, words describing importance, and 1 word from the second table, words arguing a point. These are the same words that we've been using all cycle in those last activities with the hexagon. So again, use the sentence starters in the hands on the screen. Secondly, use 2 words, 1 from each table, if you are answering the orange question. If you're answering the orange question, pause the video now, go and make a start. Use the sentence starters on the screen.
Some of you, though, might like to challenge yourself and answer a slightly trickier question. And it's in the green box. Every colony in the British Empire was run in the same way, and the most important factor was the civilizing mission. How far do you agree with this statement? This is a statement question. It's similar to the style of questions we might see at GCSE. Now, again, you might want to give a balanced argument here by using the sentence starters on one hand, on the other hand, and writing 2 paragraphs. Alternatively, you might completely disagree with the statement, and therefore you want to argue in your 2 paragraphs exactly why you think it is wrong. So you might want to write 2 paragraphs giving 2 different reasons why you disagree with that statement. Now, it says at least 2 paragraphs. So if you are answering the green question and you want to, you can, of course, write more than 2 paragraphs. You might want to give 3, 4, 5 paragraphs, 3, 4, 5 reasons why you think that statement is so wrong. Remember that history is about argument. So the more detailed the evidence that you use, and the more detailed your explanation of how that evidence proves your claim that you are right, or the statement is right or wrong, the better your paragraphs will be. So put in as much detail as you can. Remember, I talk about this like it being an argument with your parents or family at home. Give them as many reasons as you can why you are right and they are wrong. So again, if you're answering the green question, in a second you can pause the video and make a start. But instead of using 2 words from the table, you're going to use at least 4. 2 words from each table. Pause the video here, answer the question in your pink prep book. Use the sentence starters, 4 keywords. Pause the video, make a start. Okay, so once you have done that, the last task then is to do the quiz. So if you, I'm going to share my screen with you now, but if you go on back onto the assignment and you look at this bit here at the bottom that says, once you, highlighted the wrong bit. Once you have finished, you also need to complete the quiz, click the link. So if you click that link, so I'm going to do that, yours, sorry, will look like this. So again, you need to do the quiz. So click the link. It should take you straight to the quiz in Teams. You select all the answers, true or false, and then you just hit submit at the end. So you must do the quiz once you are finished. Pause the video and do the quiz now. Okay, last thing. As I'm at home, I'm going to share with you another object from my shelf. And this one is one that's also very, very special to me. And it is this. So it might look very old and tatty. That's because I've had this since I was about 4 years old. And you'll notice the back of it is all a bit broken. That's because I used to have this hanging on my ceiling when I was a kid. But this is a model made out of papier-mâché of a Lancaster bomber. Lancaster bombers were very, very important during World War II for bombing raids from Britain to Germany or Nazi-controlled Europe. And I'm into history, as you know, but I'm also very into planes. I like planes. I think they're very interesting. And when I was a kid, I used to make lots of model planes. But this isn't actually one which I made. This papier-mâché model was made by my great-grandfather. His name was Henry Jones, incidentally the same name as my brother. And he made this and painted it he was a very, very talented man, for my granddad. So this was a toy that my granddad had when he was a kid. So my granddad's now 80. So he had this bought for him when he was about 5. So this is at least 75 years old. My dad played with it, and then my dad passed it down to me, and I played with it. And as you see, it's been well loved. But yeah, that's my Lancaster bomber. I've got lots of other things to show you, like clay pipes and bits of Roman and medieval pottery and Roman nails and all sorts of things. But hopefully I won't have to show you, because hopefully we'll be back in school later this week. All the best, Year 8. Make sure you get your health checks finished, because I am going to mark them when we are back in school.